My name is Jacob Davis, and I just drove my 1967 El Camino all the way from Georgia just to visit QA1.
Let's check it out. All right, guys, we're here with Jacob Davis. Just drove here from Georgia, long road trip. And Gus, tell us a little bit about the road trip in general. I want to hear about that first because you did something kind of cool with your GPS, and I want to hear about it.
Yeah, so I take a lot of road trips all over the country, and I've driven pretty much every interstate you could, back and forth, both directions. I've crossed the country about a dozen times at this point. So I've seen the interstate. So what I do now is I hit avoid highways on the GPS, and I just let it take me wherever it will. And so that way it's more of an adventure. You end up on lots of cool back roads. You see little towns. A lot of times you end up on dirt roads, and that makes it real exciting. But it's just a much more pleasant experience, especially when you're in a classic car. It's just better.
Now, what are like some of the things that you've seen along the way that kind of stand out? I mean, because that's a lot of miles you've logged here so far.
Yeah, so in the last year, I think I've put about 15,000 miles on this car.
Go drive it.
And I'm all about that go drive it life. And so when you're on back roads, you see all kinds of interesting stuff. Like you see old hot rods on the side of the road. You drive by junkyards. You get to cross bridges across these rivers. Like I was driving along the side of the Mississippi on the way up here. And it's just so scenic. And there's all these random roadside attractions that you don't get to see on the interstate. And, you meet cool people. People talk to you at gas stations about their hot rods. And it's a much more, I think, intimate experience with your car and the road. Yeah,
and you definitely see things. I mean, I echo a lot of the same sentiments. I've had so much fun driving places, roads I've never been on before with really no intention to go in any particular direction. That's sometimes the funnest thing to do, and just get lost.
Exactly.
That's just an absolute blast. And no, it's really cool you've been able to do that. Now, something that's cool about this car is there's a little bit of history behind it, which is cool.
Yeah.
Why don't you give us a little bit of a background of the car?
So, as I said, this is a 1967 El Camino, but it's not just any 1967 El Camino. Like, everybody knows with cars, like, there's some sentimental attachment to them. They have a story, and so this car is something that means the world to me because it actually belonged to a good friend of mine who unfortunately passed away in an accident. And he had a lot of cool cars, a lot of cool stuff, but when I met him, this is the car he was driving.
Sure.
And so I talked to his family and said, hey, whenever you get around to selling this stuff, if you're not going to keep the El Camino, let me know. And so it took about 8 months, but they finally called me and said, hey, we want to sell you Aaron's El Camino. And so I ended up with his car, and he wanted to take it on a bunch of road trips and go drive it on Power Tour and go do drag week. And he never got to, and that, just didn't sit right with me.
Sure.
So I'm doing those things for him. So this car's done Power Tour already. I'm hopefully going to be doing drag week in it this year, just doing the stuff he never got to. And so I use a hashtag all the time when I'm driving this car. It says, this one's for Aaron. Yeah. And, it's as close as I can get to hanging out with him, is sitting in his car and driving it.
Yeah, and it's cool. I mean, a lot of cars, and trucks for that matter, they have stories. And it brings you back either to a time or connects you with a person. And that's what's so cool that you're able to do with this car.
Yeah.
And what's cool, at least from what we've been able to witness, is you've kept a lot of the heritage of the car the same. Like, you really haven't changed it in a way where Aaron wouldn't necessarily approve on it.
Exactly. And there's a lot he wanted to do to this car that he never got to because, ran out of time. That's how it goes. So it's still exactly how it looks when he had it. I mean, it's got graphics on it now, but same wheels he had on it. The stance is it's a little lower now because we have QA1 parts on it, but it's pretty much exactly how he left it. His shop name was Pacific Fabrication, and so his Instagram handle was PacFab. Well, my license plate is a custom vanity plate that reads PacFab, so cool. His name is on the car everywhere he goes, and I think that's pretty cool. And, if I had somebody buy my car after, I wasn't around anymore, I'd want them to do the same thing.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Now, some of the things that you've done to it, though, are maybe not so much the aesthetic enhancements, but doing some things underneath. They're doing some things that maybe with the hood closed you don't see. Why don't you kind of walk us through some of the upgrades you've done over the past year?
Yeah, so I drive my cars a lot, and some people say that, but I actually do. I've done probably over 100,000 miles in the last 4 years in classic cars.
That's impressive.
Which is a lot for classic cars. If you've never gotten out and driven a classic car with no AC and all that stuff, That's a lot.
Yeah.
But basically, I wanted to make this car drive better. It had a 283 in it. It was warmed over. It had a potato cam. It sounded good, but it made like 111 horsepower and got like 6 miles to the gallon.
Screamer.
So it wasn't great. So basically, I had the idea to LS swap this car, and everybody does LS swaps. It's like, I just don't want it to be a boring LS swap. I need to do it in a unique and interesting way. So I actually LS swapped this car live at LS Fest West in 3 days. And I had all the parts in the bed. So I drove from LA to Vegas, swapped it in 3 days, and then drove back. And so it's got an LM7 Iron Block 5.3, just a truck motor out of a junkyard.
Yep.
It's got Holley's Terminator X and a few other goodies from Holley. I got a TCI Street Fighter Turbo 350. And when I worked at Hot Rod, there happened to be a gear vendors laying around. I asked Rick Johnson if we could use it on the car. It's got a gear vendor overdrive. And then these guys were like, hey, let's put a level 3 handling kit on it. So it's got a full-blown race-ready QA1 suspension underneath, which actually rides remarkably good on the street, too.
Talk us through that. So, yes, is it race-ready? Absolutely. But for a guy like yourself who's driving all over the country, talk us through your impressions, after installing the kit of its street ability. What does that look like?
So the GMA body honestly has pretty decent factory suspension. Like a lot of people, they're upgrading stuff that's total garbage. It's hard actually to improve upon this to a point where you notice it a lot, but this stuff works so good. So we got the QA1 double adjustable coilovers, and that's the biggest deal. The fact that you can sit there and turn a dial, and all of a sudden your car's comfortable. And when I first put this in, I put it really stiff, and I went for a drive around the neighborhood, and I was like, oh, that's not going to be nice on the street. So basically, I loosened up the back a good bit and made the back where it's pretty soft. The front's still decently tight, and this thing rides so good. So when you're on the freeway and you hit a massive bump with a car this low, generally you're gonna feel it. This thing, you feel it, but the car doesn't bottom out. It stays perfectly settled. The wheel doesn't try to jerk out of your hand. It flat out works, and I'm very impressed with it because, like I said, I actually drive my stuff, and it's really good.
And you were saying earlier that you're driving, I think you must have been to Mexico or somewhere, but well over 100 miles per hour.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Some of those roads, you just have some of those major dips, and the car was just able to absorb them in a way that just gave you so much confidence behind the wheel.
So allegedly, I may have made a run from Atlanta to Texarkana for a case of Coors. And we may have been doing well into triple digits. And if you've ever been on I-10 and I-20, on the southern part of the United States, you know how rough that road gets when you hit Mississippi. This thing blew me away. And it was like I didn't even have to try to keep the car in its lane, hitting massive dips at 100 miles an hour, allegedly.
Mexico. Mexico.
Not Mississippi.
Now, so, what are your plans kind of going forward? So obviously you just drove here from Georgia all the way up to Minnesota, and you've stopped, a few different places along the way. So now you're in Minnesota. What's kind of the plan to kind of circle back home?
So I'm on a road trip that I don't often get to take, and it's one where I don't really have a lot of plans. And I'm building a shop right now, so you see the cars all stickered up in Sally's Speed Shop graphics. And I've been working on that for 4 or 5 months straight, and I just needed a break. So I was like, Power Tour didn't happen this year, at least not yet. Who knows if it is going to happen? We'll see. But I just wanted to get out and drive. So I got in the car with no real idea of where I was going to go. Just I had people I wanted to see. And so hit the road. And now I think I'm just going to go visit more friends on the way back home. Gas is cheap right now. So
yes.
I'm really enjoying that. And then when I get home, there might be another thrash on this car, and I might be taking it to drag week this year.
Oh, awesome.
We'll see.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, Jacob, I really appreciate you coming up here, letting us check out the car. It's been a while. It's been, I think it was last summer at Power Tour, last time we saw the car.
Yeah.
But I guess for people that want to maybe follow you and follow your story and some of the other driving adventures and shenanigans you get yourself into, where can they find you at?
So you can follow me for daily content at Instagram at Jacob Ross Davis. And then if you want to see some really in-depth shenanigans, you can follow our YouTube channel, which is the Sally Speed Shop YouTube channel. There'll be all kinds of videos with this car, as well as a bunch of other ridiculous machines.
That's awesome. So make sure to check that out. And we're going to wrap it up from here. But I guess in the meantime, guys, don't forget, go drive it.
I think I need to clean this thing underneath. It's a little dirty.